Hi, I'm Reverend Paula Skiles with Unity Church of San Marcos. And today is Mother's Day, and the day in which we get to honor all the women in our lives who have chosen to embody motherhood. And I think one really great way to honor mothers is to take a moment to reflect on the positive qualities that they expressed in our lives and still echo throughout our being. Mother Teresa once said this: "Kind words can be short and easy to say, but their echoes are truly endless." And I think of these as Mother's Echoes, which is the title of my message today. And it's about the wisdom of embodying these echoes for a balanced, healthy, and prosperous life. You know, some of us spent many hours reflecting on the relationship that we had with the person we called mother. And for some of us, maybe it sounds like this. The story goes: she was my best friend and my greatest cheerleader and the only home I've ever known. And then, conversely, for others, she was manipulative and overbearing. And then again, there's just some of us who just have so many mixed emotions about our mothers. I'd like to share this quote from David Cush. "There are those who touch our lives, leaving fingerprints that never fade away." So whether you had several siblings or were an only child with a single mother, or raised with a traditional family, an untraditional family, the reality is the person in our life that we thought of as mother has left fingerprints upon our souls. I know for a fact that my mother's fingerprints are all over my soul. There's a story about a young person who had been behaving, or rather misbehaving, and so much so that his mother had finally had enough and sent him to his room. And after a short time, he came out and he said to her, he says, "Mother," he said, "I've been thinking about what I did, and I said a prayer." And she said, "Oh, I'm glad to hear that you said a prayer. Did you ask God to help you be good?" And of course his response was, "Oh, no, I didn't ask God to help me be good. I asked God to help you put up with me." Sound familiar? How many stories can you and I tell about the mothers that have helped us to become better people and to be able to develop what we think of as the divine feminine qualities, those qualities like receptivity or patience or the ability to listen to others or to care for life itself. Do you find it uncomfortable to think of in terms of our spirituality with divine feminine? Well, let me just say this. The divine feminine is something that is seen throughout all of spirituality and religions like Hinduism and Christianity. And whenever you and I simply honor only the divine masculine and show that the favor, then what we're doing is essentially ignoring that part of our being that allows us to truly experience a sense of feeling and the qualities of that feeling nature over a thinking nature. And the essence of the connecting to spirit, bottom line, is really a feminine dynamic. That is, becoming still, going inside, reflecting. Those are energies of the divine feminine that we're connecting to. So perhaps it'd be easier to relate to the divine feminine as qualities of being like intuitive, compassionate, wisdom, accepting, forgiving, collaborative, reflective, kind, creative, sensual, and of course loving, and many others. It's through reflecting on my own mother's echoes that I have been able to appreciate the fingerprints she has left upon my own soul. And perhaps that's true for you. And to be able to notice God's fingerprints as well, like NBA champion Jerry Lee Lin once said, all these people, all these things came into my life, and they're all blessings from God. And now that I look back, I realize that these are God's fingerprints all over my story. Each of us has a story of our life, and our culture breeds a long chapter of greed and separation and insufficiency, so that sometimes they become the storyline that we live, and it takes a miracle to write a new chapter. The story of Jesus feeding 5,000 followers, found in all four Gospels, reveals his own mother's echoes as the divine feminine creating a miracle. Now, rather than seeing this miracle as Jesus producing fish and bread from out of the invisible ethers, I see an even greater miracle. One showing us what happens when people move from insufficiency and separation into more than enough and cooperation, a dynamic of the divine feminine. And according to Scripture, Jesus, after blessing the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, he instructed his disciples to distribute the food that they had to the masses. And after it was said and done, they took up 12 baskets of leftovers. Amazing. But keep in mind that the intent of Jesus' message, or his story, was to help you and I, people like you and I, to link to shifting from separation, insufficiency, not enough, into being one with Spirit, into being one with one another, into an interbeing. Or I think of it as a consciousness of heaven on earth. His very purpose in being here, he achieved with 5,000 people. So living this story of separation that most people did back then, and still do, not only were they hungry, but they were very protective of what little they did have, because that is a part of the story of separation and insufficiency. So here it is. Consider how likely it is that these individuals who are coming from that mindset would just simply hand over what they had. And think of it this way. Imagine, here's the disciples walking up to you, and they've got this little basket. And it's got something in it, but not much. And simply say, take what you need. And if you have something to share, please give it. And then them pulling out from underneath their robes the provisions that they had, and putting something in or taking something out as they needed. And that, to me, was then copied by the person next to them, and the next one. And then what they saw may have been that they were really reacting first to Jesus' message, but then it was to being with one another and to sharing with one another. And so that they were doing what they could. And the whole miracle I see is them completely letting go of separation and not enough to more than enough, and oneness with God and with each other. And I repeat, heaven on earth consciousness. These 5,000 people coming together to bear witness. That inspirational moment was moving people, and it was changing them on some deep level, because they were creating a new consciousness of loving, compassionate, interconnection, generosity. And you and I can create that same experience in our own lives that will echo throughout for those around us. Everyone, let me share this thought. Everyone has both the feminine and masculine qualities. It's not about what sex you are, explains intuitive counselor and sacred space designer Elena Kilkenny. She adds that the place where these two sit in balance is a sweet spot that we should strive for in our day-to-day life. Now here's the reason. Too much masculine dynamism, and we see aggressiveness and domineering qualities. Too much feminine dynamism, and we see powerlessness and inertia. Can you envision what embodying and exemplifying your own mother's echoes in today's business world might look like? This person would be a person having that balance of the masculine and feminine energy would make a wonderful business leader because they are one who understands the value of working together in community, of collaborating and listening to one another and sharing ideas, which these are skills that can spur creativity and increase productivity, and in the end increase each individual participant's personal satisfaction. So I would like to share 5 ways that you and I can tap into that divine feminine or create those qualities that can echo in our life. First, sacred rest. Sacred rest is really about letting go of achieve more, do more, produce more, if just for a short time. Simply pause and let yourself reflect. Sit in quiet. Perhaps just 5 minutes a day. Carve this time out where you have a morning prayer or sit in meditation. You have an afternoon nap. You watch the sun rise or the sunset. Journaling. All of these things that help us to simply have a sacred rest. 2, embrace your senses. Light a candle or create a wonderful, beautiful, fragrant meal. Let the smells and the tastes envelop your senses. We can embrace so much by getting in touch with the tactile side of things, like soft, nurturing environment. In other words, incorporate more of the yin energy into our space, like with our lighting or the colors that we surround ourselves with, and creating a calming environment. Number 3, practicing unconditional love. And usually the most difficult person to do that for is our own self. And so there's a technique I would offer. Stand in front of a mirror and look in your own eyes and tell yourself, I love you unconditionally, until you can mean it. Now it may take a while. It did for me. But I remember the moment where I was looking at my eyes and I knew I meant it. It really simply changed me. It brought tears to my eyes, and my whole life changed from that moment on. And furthermore, part of that practicing self-love or practicing unconditional love is looking at your own life and through your actions through the eyes of God, so to speak. In other words, non-judgmental, no shooting on yourself, as if you're your own personal cheerleader. Because here is a fact. You will never look into the eyes of anyone that God does not love. Number 4, get in touch with your dreams. Because interpreting your dreams helps you to get in touch with that inner part of your being, your inner world, and who you are and what you really truly feel or think, or in essence what is happening in reality, because your dreams do not lie. And they have and are symbolic on a lot of things, but you can find out and figure out what they mean, because they help us to connect to whatever's going on in our life in a way that makes us more prepared. And 5, tap into your intuition. Now, you may have heard the term a mother's intuition. And honestly, it's a felt sense. It's not a thinking sense. So getting quiet and tapping into that intuition is a great way to connect to your own feminine or divine feminine qualities within you. So go within before acting. And when you have something on your mind about something you want to handle or how to handle something in your life, trust your intuition, because in that way you are letting Spirit guide you. Well, those are the 5 things that I know will help you in your life to create the echoes that may be a positive influence for someone else. May you know the soft but fierce when necessary, loving and supporting mother within you. And in so doing, whether you're male or female, the fingerprints you will inevitably leave behind will reflect the divine feminine, or your own mother's echoes, as a nurturer, healer, compassionate peacemaker, whether you realize it or not, and they will echo throughout humankind. God bless you.